All right. Active and let's get online. Come on. You can do it. Load. There we go. Mute myself. Edit. Look for my phone that I seem to have misplaced so I can call or text Josh. Live. Monetization on and immediately limited. No? Interesting. It went instantly yellow that other time. Live control room. Load. 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 Thank you. Live chat. I do not see my phone. Okay, I acquisitioned my phone. So let's get ready. Anybody watching the recording afterwards, as usual, you can probably skip the first 10 minutes. I'll still be talking about stuff during those 10 minutes, but I won't be quote unquote officially starting until at least 10 minutes in. Brazil. Why the whole Google spying on you algorithm really isn't working all that well recently. I have no idea why it started on Brazil. I really would assume if it was, intelligent and tracking everything I've been looking at, it would have started on Israel or Ukraine, but oh well. Uh, what else would we be needing? Well, I should probably get up on my Twitter anyways. Ooh, cat. Like the cat. Hello. We have Andrew so far. Oh, yeah, I should check. Text Josh. I cannot text Josh. My phone is dead. Okay. Josh, if you're out there, I hope you managed to show up somehow on your own. Let me run through some stuff real quick, see if there's anything else. Blah, blah, blah. No, that's primarily the same. Anything else here? 2 hours ago. Okay, no, so that's all going to be the same. Everything's in bookmarks. Okay, Google Earth, bookmarks. Probably forgetting something. Oh, I never actually gave an end of day check to the oil and gas journal, so we can do that while I wait, or while we wait. Blah, blah. Okay, no, that's all the same. Oh, whoa, 8 already. Okay, everyone's showing up for this one. All right. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna plug my phone in and give it a minute to like power on and then potentially text Josh because he might not show up otherwise. Give me 1 second. All right, we're going to let that charge. And if Josh doesn't appear on his own by start time, then I'll actually turn that on and text him. Okay. All right, nothing's really changed price-wise, at least since I looked this morning. Oil should not be that low. I have no idea what you're doing there. What else? Oh yeah. So, for any of you who didn't see the channel posts or whatever where I explained as much, actually I should go to the Google Docs themselves. I've continued working on these Google Docs that I post the links for you guys. Like most recently, I posted them. They changed the layout. Most recently, I posted them in the under the community tab under the posts thing, like here. And there'll be more soon. But I've been working on different Google Docs, like I've shown a lot of you guys before, with like external, so non-video resources for you guys and stuff. Like this one, which shows maps I've made of different countries and regions showing which areas have versus have not been explored for oil and gas yet. And the way they work is gray shaded in is areas that could not contain oil and gas geologically. Red is areas that have been explored completely already. Areas that are not shaded in, that are like the regular either white or beige that the map would be otherwise, have not yet been explored. And then uh, if the map has both onshore and offshore displayed on it, then offshore explored areas will be pink. However, if it's just a if it is just an offshore map, like the map of offshore southeastern Brazil, since that's where most of Brazil's oil comes from, then I will use red for the offshore as well. But so I've made all of these, and there's quite a number of them that I've completed thus far. Oh yeah, I forgot. I need to shrink Argentina so it fits on one page. Yeah, I've made quite a lot of them so far. And there's also one of the more painstaking ones, because I have to dig through different data sets and also try to find out which ones are actually verified, which is not, or versus not. So these are demographic overlay charts that I have been working on, where I show number of births in the millions. For example, this is Indonesia. The blue is number of births, and red is number of deaths, plus or minus migration. So if it spikes up like that, typically that's a mass outbound migration event. Or if it like dipped in suddenly, like you'll see on some of them, that was a mass inward migration event. And occasionally, like here, once you hit 2020, occasionally you will see a spike that actually represents a mass death event like COVID. But usually they're actually either inbound or outbound immigration, mass immigration events more frequently than they are mass death events. But I have 23 countries on here so far. And so I did it as like an overlay so you can see when the two or where they are in relation to each other and where they have been in relation to each other over time, and when they would otherwise appear to start converging. Or in the case of countries where they have converged already, like say, go down to like Japan or I guess Thailand. Thailand just started their population decline. They just peaked like 2 years ago or so. COVID kind of pushed it forward compared to where it otherwise probably would have happened. But so for some of them, you'll be able to see where they already crossed, or you can basically take an implication of where they're about to. Or in cases like Germany, you can see where they've crossed back and forth multiple times. And there you go. There's a mass migration event. That giant dip down towards zero was during the migration crisis in 2015 and 16. But I have 23 countries so far. The most weird so far you will see is the UAE. So that is the zero line. These are negative millions, or up to about 500,000 since it's it's 0.5. But that massive negative lunge for the red is over the 2000s and 2010s, when they were taking in millions of cheap foreign workers to to fuel their construction industry, because they didn't really want to do the work themselves. You will find a common pattern like that in the rich Persian Gulf nations. One that, as my dad has worked in almost all of them except for Saudi Arabia. He noticed that pattern really frequently in person too. They don't like having to actually like do stuff. So I'm working on those, and there's links for to those to both of those for you guys. I will try to do as close to all the countries as I can. Can't guarantee I'll succeed at that, because some don't actively like publish data. Like, I don't know, Lesotho or something probably doesn't. And okay, we're at 10 minutes. Let me grab the phone. All right, waiting for that to turn on. So in the meantime, let me actually get the notes out for what we have going on this time. No, no. There we go. All right, now it should be on. All right, text finally sent. If he shows up, he shows up. If he doesn't, he doesn't. All right, rip this notebook page out. So give people a few more minutes to show up. In the meantime, we will cover things, just not the big stuff uh, right yet. So we're going to start, we're going to warm up with some stupidity. So the UAE, one of the rich Persian Gulf nations I just mentioned, uh, just like Saudi Arabia, famous for doing really stupid stuff and blowing hundreds of billions of dollars on vanity projects. I think I have this bookmarked. Yep, there we go. So apparently, they've actually been doing this for quite a while. It's only just now that they've decided to like super scale it and have actually have like scheduled flights now. But they are going full addict on the cloud seeding thing, and want to, basically just use their money to command the weather effectively to what extent they can. So that is not really the best idea, because that's wasting hundreds of tons of silver in the form of silver iodide, just spraying it out into the atmosphere, never to be recovered again. And silver isn't the most abundant thing, and we kind of need it for like, you know, slightly more important stuff than vanity weather control projects. But that's not the only thing the UAE is doing. See, they're doing quite a number of things. They are also, since they don't want to do work and they want to kind of, get rid of that bulge of imported foreign labor. Actually, yeah, let me show you this. The particular reason. So this underlying bit is the actual Emirati population. This is all the imported foreign labor, most of whom are males. And given the cascade the world is going to be going into in the very immediate future, they don't really want that around anymore. So they've been beginning to dismiss them, not necessarily deportation, but uh, it's more being referred to as dismissing. However, in their absence, Emiratis don't want to do work. So they have decided that they are going to commit to all drones, all AI, everything. They just put out announcements this this week that, or sorry, last week that they are going to be implementing a self-driving car taxi service. So they're not going to have taxi drivers anymore, and they're not going to have delivery drivers. Everything like food and package wise is going to be delivered by rotor drones, and they are. I'm not even kidding you with this one. They are going AI with their police force and accident handling partially. I even retweeted this in a quote tweet recently, so you can just get down to there. Come on, load. There we go. Yeah, I quote tweeted that, and so this is rather unwise or unadvisable or something like that. There it is. Yep. So, oh yeah, so they're going to be reducing police and lawyer load, and thus reducing their police and lawyers themselves. They are Yeah, they're starting up an AI app where you're going to report your accident to the AI algorithm, and the AI algorithm will then make the legal decision of who is at fault. So this is kind of really really stupid, but they got to get rid of those millions of foreign workers, and they don't want to actually do work. Uh, they don't want to actually fill in any like positions when those workers are gone. They just kind of want to live off that oil revenue stipend. So this is the path they're going down. I got anybody? 16. Dang. But no comments. Okay, so nothing I have to respond to. The situation in Myanmar continues being rather fluid, although, as I have said before, it has vehemently turned against the junta, thankfully. So the rebel forces, there are several different factions because Myanmar effectively is four different countries, kind of, that are going to split off when the whole thing falls apart. But the different rebel factions fighting the junta have pushed the junta or the government forces out of four states now. They've pushed them out of these these ones and a decent bit out of this northern one. That's probably going to be the fifth one, and out of these two southern ones, which I showed you guys on that map in previous streams about all the bases and military camps that the rebels had overrun. Well, now they are advancing up through this one and have been striking government and military convoys that were moving troops and supplies to try to like retake the southern arm from the rebels. But the rebels are already up in here and have been striking government convoys with RPGs and anti-tank munitions. I think I downloaded a map that maybe did I? Uh, there we go. Yeah, so they were moving convoys down to like stage troops and stuff to try to then move down and retake the southern arm there from the rebels. But the rebels have been ambushing the convoys along the jungle roads, and so you know they're the junta's whole staging effort to then try to retake the south is not exactly going according to plan, just like everything else. So they are actually definitively losing, which is nice. They've only been in power off and on for like 5 decades. Be nice to finally have them gone. All right. Who else? Did we get Josh? Not yet. Hello. Okay, 3 commenters, no super chats. 15, 16 already. All right. So, I think I will go ahead and start for real then. So, the situation continues to deteriorate. For anybody who somehow is still unaware of anything, if you unadvisedly rely on me entirely on like one stream a week or whatever to get news, so Hamas launched a massive massacre attack in southern Israel in the first week of August or the end of the first week of August, and total was it total death toll from that ended up being around 1,400 in terms of civilians, and it was in total it was about 2,500 Hamas fighters or Hamas combatants who actually crossed in. They inevitably ended up engaging in combat with the IDF. And as you would expect, the casualty ratio was not in Hamas's favor. As Josh would usually comment, L plus ratio, it was about 5 to 1. So about 1,500 of the 2,500 that crossed in to commit the massacres were killed in combat versus about 300 IDF roughly. So it was roughly a 5 to 1 ratio. And they crossed back in, and ever since Netanyahu and the Israeli War Council have uh, basically already set up the implemented plan to invade Gaza and kind of not discreetly just destroy everything. And effectively, even though Egypt won't really let the Palestinians leave into the Sinai Peninsula, the plan on Israel's part seems to be effectively to force them all to flee into the Sinai Peninsula, because even if Egypt has like their border closed, it really won't matter if you once you get to the point of like several 100,000 people, they can kind of just topple the gate anyways, and there there's a few guards there. And I doubt, especially because of his supposed Muslim solidarity optics, I really doubt Sisi over there in Cairo would tell the guards to actually shoot, the refugees fleeing from Gaza. But even if he did, there's like a handful of guards there, each with like one AK-47 and a clip for it that they might be able to empty. But after that, that's kind of it. So that seems to be like probably what the semi-genocide plan is here. Other than that, the partial other plan is what it has been up to this point, which is mass bombing and the inadvertent casualties being occurred by that mass bombing, or sorry, accrued by that mass bombing, and also the mass death that's now going to be occurring among the Gazan population in the wake of the fact that they have now run out of water, and the only water entering Gaza, because Israel cut off water flowing into Gaza, the only water coming in is packages of water bottles coming in on aid trucks through the Egyptian border. And also, The fuel for the backup generators for the hospitals has now completely run out. And so uh, hospitals effectively can't really do anything to treat anybody. So the tens of thousands of horrifically injured people are now probably going to die over the next week or two, which is going to rack up the death toll even further. And, there's going to be a lot of sickness and dehydration deaths, probably at least in the tens of thousands, which again is probably what Netanyahu's intention is. So it's like a uh, partial genocide slash ethnic cleansing, because if he could snap his fingers and just have them all die, he would probably do that because he's a psychopath. Uh, like many other world leaders have turned out to be psychopaths recently. However, he knows he can't really pull that off and get away with it because us, the US, are usually like Israel's biggest cheerleader. And as far as he's been going, even we have, even those of us who like are usually avid Israeli fans or fanboys, have gone like actually almost entirely against it this time because Psycho Boy is just like going so far over the edge, and actually, to the surprise of many, hundreds of thousands of Israelis themselves in Israel have actually been protesting against this because even they now think Netanyahu is like too much of a psychopath. So he knows he can't actually do what he wants, so he's going to do like half of what he wants, and then have the other half be like just forcing the population to flee into Egypt. What Egypt then does after that, I don't know, but that is definitely Netanyahu's intention. Are they backing down from this? No. They're going to do it. They are absolutely going to just go for it, as everyone has been doing. Putin just went for it. Uh, uh, what's the Azerbaijani guy's name? Aliyev. Aliyev decided to just go for it. Tajikistan decided to just go for it last year. However, thankfully, Tajikistan kind of sucks. So they wanted to invade and conquer Kyrgyzstan. However, they couldn't because they suck. So they kind of epically failed and had a whole L plus ratio moment. But now everyone, like I said, is just going for it. And Azerbaijan is going to just go for it again because they have every intention of actually invading Armenia itself. Uh, so, yes, Netanyahu is going to just go for it. And when he does, it's probably going to blow because Hezbollah is basically 95% is going to jump into the fray full stop. The Islamic resistance or Islamic revolution, they keep changing the name every 5 seconds, of various militia fighters from Iraq and Syria, and even some from Pakistan that Iran has been flying in and bussing in and getting up to the Syrian border with Israel. They are very fervent in their militantism, so they will jump in. Uh, what happens beyond that, who else might do what, is not entirely certain. Iran has said that they will. However, that is actually really doubtful whether they themselves will do anything because they know they are afraid, for one, that the US is eventually going to invade them. So they kind of want to hold to their own strength for that. The actual potentiality of us, the US, invading Iran itself was never actually that high and is actually less now than it was before. Um, However, they also are aware of a much more going to happen possibility, which is their inevitable war with Turkey. And so they kind of also want to save their military force for that. So they are shipping like, tons of weapons to their proxies like Hezbollah and the Islamic Revolution. And They can't get anything to Hamas anymore, but they previously were. So by all means, they're willing to sacrifice those three to like cause Israel as much damage as possible, and also to like keep up the random Shahed drone attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq. But them actually like coming in themselves is really, really unlikely because, like I said, they for one want to save their force for the potential invasion that they're paranoid about. Two, Tehran is not Moscow. They are actually kind of intelligent. They, for one, internally at least, not talking about what they say publicly, but internally, they know full well that they would lose. Like they're not, like chest beating about how they would easily crush the U.S. They're well aware they would lose, which is kind of why they avoid direct action themselves as much as possible because they have that paranoia about like a potential invasion and don't want to incur it. And in terms of totals set up thus far, like I said, 1,400 civilian casualties or dead specifically in Israel, 6,000 dead civilians in Gaza, 100 dead civilians in the West Bank, a few dead civilians in southern Lebanon, and 1,500 initially in that first on that day of attack, dead Hamas fighters. In total, about 1,700 have been killed now, and in total, about or a little over 300. Sorry, a little over 300 IDF, like 310 or something, and around 100 Hezbollah members and a few dozen Islamic Revolution members have been killed in artillery strikes by Israel across the border into Lebanon and into Syria. And that's 1,700 dead Hamas fighters out of about 40,000, and 100. We'll call it a split 50-50, even though it's not. So 50 dead Hezbollah fighters out of about 100,000, and 50 dead Islamic Revolution fighters out of about also 40,000, just like Hamas. Also, Israel has been getting struck by rockets constantly. One today just hit some electricity infrastructure, which is going to inevitably start becoming more frequent. And if we start getting into like breakdown and blackout territory, then things are going to, kind of get really bad. So rocket wise, Hamas has expended about 14,000 out of 20,000 rockets, and Hezbollah has expended about 2,000 out of 150,000. They actually have 50,000 more than I was last aware they had. In terms of what the Islamic Revolution has on the border of Syria, not as much as Hamas or Hezbollah. They kind of just have like mortars, like a regular, I think 60 millimeter is the standard mortar size. So they have a bunch of like old World War II and 1960s Cold War mortars. They don't really have like that much more. Other than that, they're basically just guys with AKs in Jeeps and a few RPGs occasionally. So in terms of those who would be involved, Hezbollah from Lebanon's end is like the most well equipped, although also Iran has constantly managed to smuggle some of its uh, cruder cruise missiles into Yemen, and the groups in Yemen did try to launch a few of those in Israel's direction. In terms of like guidance, they're not the best. Like they would probably have the accuracy that Russia's have, which is to say they would hit within 2 kilometers, a broad 2 kilometer circle of where pinpoint the supposedly pinpointed coordinates. But Israel is densely populated, so it would cause damage one way or another. However, those launches were intercepted and destroyed by a U.S. anti-air destroyer that was passing through on its way to the region. And I'm going to chug some water because my throat's getting tired already. and then I will check chat like a responsible content creator. Oh. uh, okay. I mean, go ahead. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what your point is. The like the response to a set of terrorists killing people would be to then eliminate those terrorists, not to mass bomb a densely populated strip of land and effectively try to kill everyone living there by cutting off their water supply. That's also evil. The response to evil isn't evil, and the side you like more isn't not evil when they do evil things. They are also evil. So by all means, unsub. If you're a patron on Patreon, also stop giving me your money. You guys seem to think it has like weight when you like threaten me with that or something. Like I've knowingly like kicked you myself. Like I've dropped from like $60 a month on Patreon down to like 30 in the past because I have kicked off and blocked patrons on YouTube and Twitter for being like racist and genocidal. And what else did I have? Oh yeah, so equipment losses. So Israel has 500 of their modern Merkava tanks. They do have hundreds of like the older ones from the 70s in storage, but obviously, that's not as effective as the modern ones. They did lose three modern ones, two on that first day, and one recently because they did do one brief incursion into a section of Gaza. Effectively, I would assume that was kind of like to try to run a quick like thunder run test to see like if there were, anti-vehicle mines laid under the roads or anything. It turned out there weren't, but there were a lot of ambush points set up, and they ended up. It wasn't like blown up like Russia's tanks get, but it was damaged enough to where when it came back, the IDF effectively said, just scrap it, it's too far gone. That was on top of two that on the first day were at like a military parking lot, basically near the Gaza Strip when the attack happened. And some of the Hamas fighters like opened the hatches and, like dropped explosives in there. And when you blow it out from the inside, then, it's kind of screwed. So that's 3 out of 500 that have been lost. I'm not sure what their like production capability is. They're also not actively making any. Although I would assume they were probably working on like a Mark V version to switch over to eventually. And apart from that, there are five damaged Apaches. Four were damaged on in within like the first week during counter activities, not by anti-air stuff because Hamas doesn't actually have anti-air equipment, not real ones at least. They were damaged by machine gun fire from the ground, and they will be repaired and ready to re-enter service by December. One was just damaged either this morning or yesterday. I forget which one because there's a massive time difference. Obviously, Israel's on the other side of the world. So this morning for me, for them, technically maybe. Oh no, wait, it wouldn't be yesterday. That would be tomorrow, or actually, I guess it would have been like late tonight. Uh, Although technically now it's tomorrow for them. But anyways, another one was damaged in flight while conducting strikes. And again, given the repair times, the differences between when each was damaged, that one that was damaged today will most likely be repaired and re-enterable to service by January. The first 4 that were damaged will be re-enterable to service by early December. But that is currently temporarily 5 out of action out of 48, and 3 tanks out of action out of 500. So military asset wise, at least offensively, that's not like a huge blow. Nor is 300 IDF casualties out of 630,000. Granted, out of 630,000, only about 150,000 are combat personnel, because that's how any military works. Uh, Less than a quarter are actual like infantry, tank crew, or whatever, mortar crews, whatever have you, combat personnel. Usually, it's somewhere between 15 and 25%. Typically closer to between 15 and 20% is the number of like combat troops that you can gauge out of a military's total personnel number. So Israel does have a greater proportion of combat personnel than a regular military does, but like I said, all 630,000 personnel are not all combat personnel. But the 300 IDF troops that were lost were obviously combat personnel because they were in infantry combat. The only supply issue Israel is in is regarding Tamir interceptors for the Iron Dome system. So they have started to not engage all targets. They already didn't, actually. The way the Iron Dome works is so it would be like, for example, Ashkelon has been like the target of a lot of rocket strikes. So the Iron Dome system, the radars on each battery will like calculate the trajectories of the rockets. And if they calculate a high percent chance it's going to land like in, say, a residential area, they will intercept the rockets. If they calculate it's going to land like in an empty parking lot or in a field or go off course and crash into the sea, then they will not intercept them. So that was already in place. That was already how it acted. However, they've adjusted it now to where they are starting to let a lot of others pass that they otherwise would not. So a lot of businesses and stuff, for example, and a lot of public spaces, like say shopping malls or amusement parks, are closed. So they've now calibrated them to, and my mouse cursor is frozen. They've now calibrated them to account for that and tell the system that if it's going to hit like one of those closed places, then just let it hit. And obviously, if it's going to hit like out in what little wilderness they have, just let it hit. However, there is a risk to that because a lot of the open areas have, infrastructure running through them, like this electrical tower here. So, I mean, it's a really small chance that one of like, something critical like that will get hit, but it is still a chance when you start deciding to let stuff through. And they've also added on a bit. I believe I have a map here. Is this it? Okay, no, that's the unaltered version. Okay, well, so yeah, here's a non-Google Earth version where you can see like borders and stuff more clearly. Uh, Let me find the altered version I made. The evac version. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Okay, no, it's not even the same one. So these red areas here and up here, those are evac areas. That's the Israeli government has effectively ordered the residents of towns and cities within those areas to leave indefinitely. So places like Sderot are now evacuated on an indefinite timeline. So big chunks of area around there like that. And also on the northern border, since Hezbollah has started launching rockets and stuff, although not that many people live in that area. Uh, it's the southern area, like near Gaza, is the one of the two that's like way more populated. So the reason they've done that is effectively so they can kind of just let the area go, Iron Dome wise, and tell it, just let rockets hit since no one's going to be there. Since that's a densely populated area and would require a lot of interceptions, All in all, the rationale behind that is the kind of secret reality to some, but not so secret to anyone with a brain, that ammunition for the Iron Dome is not infinite, as is nothing infinite. So the Iron Dome has 1,200 Tamir interceptors in it at any given time. It's already within like the first week and a half or so, or the first week overall, had fired an entire battery's worth or an entire emptying out. So 1,200 interceptors have been used. Since then, over another 1,200 have been spent. So that's 2,400 in total. And on top of the 1,200 in the system, when all this started, my assumption was that Israel would probably, but then again, this was me assuming I was the one making decisions, or that those making decisions would err on my level of like extreme caution. I assumed they would probably want like 10 to 20,000 Tamir interceptors in standby storage ready, for reloading the system. However, it's looking like that's not really the case, and the number might have been closer to only 6,000, uh, of which, 1,200 of the in storage, those not originally in the system, have now been spent. At least an additional 1,200, given the amount of rocket attacks today and the amount of interceptions that did take place, since the rockets were targeted at Tel Aviv, not at the evacuated areas. The number, I would say, probably another 30 at least were spent, or 300 at least were spent today. So that's likely 4,500 remaining on Israel's part. The U.S. has 2,000 lying around that we are boating in, or sorry, we're flying in on C-17s. We already brought in at least 300. That was a week ago, so we've probably flown in another 300 since then. We have, like I said, 2,000 total Tamir interceptors sitting around to hand off to them, and the manufacturing rate for them is about 6,000 per year when the factories are running. So assuming that on August 7th, after everything happened, they immediately switched the factories on, and also dialed them up to full burn, which is not how things work, but assume that happened, then they should be cranking out 500 per month, which is still way less than they're being expended at, which is not the best situation to be in, especially because Israel is already densely populated. You can let these areas go and try to save some ammunition, but then Hamas is just going to not attack those areas, and is going to start launching into the areas where everybody still is. And once you start doing stuff like that, and you're just going to end up hacking people like even more into less and less of an area, and kind of making this easier, which is not really the best idea. But we're kind of coming to their rescue because we're bringing in multiple strike groups along with anti-air destroyers, as well as the UK. I'll get to the full assembly of stuff in a second. Also, I don't think I bookmarked that one. Uh, did I? Doesn't look like it. Oh, there it is. So Netanyahu did announce that he is on delay until the arrival of allied assets, which, if you guys read my write up that I posted, is what I said was probably happening. And the sort of final thing they are waiting for is the arrival of a second U.S. carrier strike group, the Eisenhower one, which is on its way, is currently right around here or so, and should arrive south of Cyprus within like effective range by Monday, I would say. So I would call Monday probably the first or earliest day that it could actually happen, although that would probably still be kind of cutting it a bit too soon. So still probably a low chance that that things will actually go off on Monday. But that is what they're actually waiting for before they enter Gaza, after which everything probably blows out. And then we get a whole Middle East spiral. And like I said, Iran directly entering is really not that likely because they are trying to like save their force for themselves, for uh, the not all that high potentiality of being invaded by the U.S., but they still think that's going to happen. Also, the other thing they know is coming that actually really is going to happen, which is their inevitable war with Turkey. And actually, speaking of Turkey, so Turkey has kind of taken advantage of the whole situation. And you know how I've already described how Turkey is occupying the northern stretch of Syria, about according to them 20 kilometers deep. That's supposedly all they're doing. In reality, once you get past the river here, they're way more south than that, actually. And they have actually, as much as they're trying to conceal the fact, they are actually starting a semi genocide of their own. As I have this one bookmarked? Was it this one? Yes. The the Turks are now bombing bombing water systems, treatment plants, reservoirs, pipelines, power plants, power stations, and of course hospitals. But they're gonna try to hide that fact. So they're now just bombing everything that people need to stay alive. And whether everybody dies in northern Syria or they're forced to flee to the south, where the Syrian government that already was trying to kill them will then probably also kill them. Turkey doesn't really care. They're going to be not their problem anymore either way. And so eventually in the future they'll probably be able to make some kind of stupid declaration about no one's really caring for this land anymore. Why not it become a part of Turkey? Ha 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 ha. Ottoman Empire restoration progress +1, since that's kind of Erdogan's whole angle. So, like I said, literally everybody is just going for it now, and everyone is turning out to be a psychopath and wanting to like genocide somebody. And I'm like faced with the reality, like the few times I actually leave and go out to like the store or something, I'm faced with the reality, like walking amongst people, like I'm looking around mentally and like thinking, you you most of you around me are probably deranged and like probably would celebrate the death of some insert group here. Like I know Josh well enough that I know he is an actual human. The rest of humanity, I have no idea. I have been so thrown out. I already had like a really dismal view of humanity before, but now in the wake of like the last 2 years, I have found out that even I was like overtly optimistic, despite how negative I'm usually referred to by other people for being. Turns out, no, I was like insanely optimistic about humanity, even in my insanely negative assumptions, or as others referred to them, insanely negative. No, it turns out everyone's just a genocidal psychopath. So, maybe there are other, actual humans still lingering somewhere, but I can only confirm the existence of one other. Although, actually, now that I would think about it, I'm discrediting Nick and Kayla back up home in Fairbanks, where I would love to return to. But they, uh, I'd say 95% confidence they're actually still human. But I really, really can't guarantee for anyone else anymore. Let me chug some water. Check chat. Ban some people. Probably. Oh, there's Josh. Blah, blah, blah. 80% of us lack moral judgment. I I would prefer to think that it is only 80% who are like uh, psychopathic and genocidal, like towards some group or in some way. But I'm having my doubts that it's that low actually. All right, so we have okay. So the assembly of force is ongoing. Zoom out a bit farther. So here in the Eastern Mediterranean, we are beginning a force assembly because, as I explained in the write up that I posted, a link to the Google Doc of, or that I just posted on the community post thing, it seems based on us doing this and based on the intensification in the northern parts there, that the CIA slash combined NATO intelligence assets slash Mossad collectively all have changed their minds over the weeks following this, into not thinking it would really come about, into thinking that yes, actually it looks like if Israel does invade Gaza, then the region is actually going to blow. So we are trying to put as many force assets in place as possible. One U.S. carrier strike group is already in place. Carrier strike group of the U.S. consists of a super carrier. There's a difference between aircraft carriers and super carriers. Apart from us, France is the only other nation that even has a single super carrier. Everybody else just has regular carriers. What's the difference? A regular aircraft carrier carries up to about 30 aircraft. A super carrier carries between 70 and 80, and a super carrier is nuclear powered and effectively has infinite range. The only thing limiting it is that it needs to have additional food constantly flown in like every few weeks. However, that's easy to do. You can fit that on one supply prop, turboprop, that can land on and offload the food crates in like a few minutes. So super carriers, much better. We're the only ones that have like a massive collection of them because they're really expensive. Uh, we have one and a carrier strike group consists of a super carrier surrounded by 4 destroyers and usually at least 2 submarines, although they're never mentioned. And obviously, when you see, if you have like a subscription, like a lot of the OSINT accounts do on Twitter or on X, if you have one of the subscriptions to some of the better satellite stuff, where you can get like the hour by hour updated satellite images, or at least during when it's daytime over a region uh, that you want the hour by hour update for. When you look at those and you look down and you like see, say, down here off of Cyprus, you see the super carrier with the 4 destroyers around it. Obviously, you're not going to see the 2 submarines that accompany it because they're under the water. But there are 2 submarines there with it. And occasionally they're also accompanied by Ticonderoga cruisers. What is a cruiser? A cruiser is, here, I'll be professional and just put uh, image up on there. There we go. Ticonderoga cruiser. Load, load, load. There we go. Ticonderoga. Wow. U.S. Navy. You suck at photography. Why? You see, this is what I don't understand. Okay, I've applied for photography positions like all over the place. No one takes me because I don't have a damn master's degree in photography. But, the people who apparently do produce like, messed up res images like this. What is this? Look at the blurring. This isn't professional. But these people are getting hired somehow. Okay, whatever. So you see all these, and there's another bunch like there behind that tower you can't see. A cruiser. Uh, we are one of the last countries that actually operate them. Russia still has two. One's at the bottom of, but they had three. One's at the bottom of the Black Sea now. They still have two, kind of, although they mostly stay in dock at St. Petersburg or at Kaliningrad, constantly undergoing repair because they're horrible at maintenance. But a cruiser is essentially just a giant cruise missile platform. The Ticonderogas have about 200 cruise missiles each on top of the other armaments, but they have 200 cruise missiles each, and they have uh, those two plus I'm pretty sure there is a third launch thing there, and each like side can launch one at once. They do have to be a couple seconds apart from each other, but so effectively they can lob like 4 to 6 at once. At once meaning like within the same I don't know 20-second time frame, which is faster than a destroyer can lob them because a destroyer usually just has the one set of launchers, and obviously they carry a lot more than a destroyer does. So the ones that we have sent or are sending, the one that's sitting there now is the USS Gerald Ford, which has 80 F-18s on it, plus accompanying munitions and several AWACS/EWACS planes, which are the ones that fly at decent altitudes. What's the Navy one? The E-2? Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. It was plane. Yeah, it's a plane. Yeah, this one. So things like this uh that have these big dishes, they fly up around, and being at altitude and with that dish gives it like several hundred miles in every direction of advanced precision radar coverage, which is effectively what lets us like see you whatever you're doing, and when you're coming, and also uh, lets us have additional like guidance on missiles and stuff. Uh, apart from just launching them and punching coordinates in, we can also like do additional guidance afterwards and like warn them and stuff that there are anti-missile things incoming, and the missiles actually then kind of have a chance to dodge the anti-air stuff. So there's a few of those on each carrier as well. The carrier is accompanied by 4 destroyers, 3 of which are cruise missile destroyers, which have about 100 cruise missiles each, and a Ticonderoga class cruiser, which has 200 cruise missiles each. And the fourth destroyer is an anti-air destroyer, which is effectively its job is to protect the fleet, or in this case, probably fill in a bit for the Iron Dome if it comes down to it. And anti-air destroyers have hundreds of anti-air interceptors on them because they're anti-air. The anti-air interceptors are smaller than the Tomahawks and the whatever the new, I forgot what the new cruise missile is called, but they're smaller and kind of cheaper. They're not cheap, obviously, but we have the second group coming, which is the Eisenhower, which is a bit smaller, so it only has 70 F-18s on it, along with some E-2s. Then it is also accompanied by 4 destroyers, plus a Ticonderoga class cruiser, and 2 submarines. Just in the event, that some of Iran's subs, which aren't exactly that impressive, somehow try to like make it over there. That that's not really going to happen. But hey, you never know. Whatever. Uh, France has sent one of their amphibious ships, floating dock ship. Basically, they're giant hollow boxes that are full of like Marines, whatever country's Marines, and along with vehicles that can be offloaded. So France's one that they have waiting just in case has somewhere short of a thousand French troops, probably legionnaires or something, a dozen or two Leclerc tanks, and then several dozen AFVs and IFVs. The U.S. has an amphibious group there now as well that has about 2,000 Marines and several dozen Abrams, along with probably like 150 plus AFVs and IFVs, a mix of Bradleys and Strykers. Britain has one that is on its way as well that will have like 800 Royal Marines or so, along with only AFVs and IFVs, since Britain really doesn't have like the tanks to send anywhere anymore because Britain is downsizing and becoming pathetic, like Germany just wants to sit up there and cry in a corner whenever stuff happens. It would be nice to like have you guys come back a little bit. So the only ones we can really count on in Europe for anything militarily is France and Poland. But granted, actually, we can count on a lot of the formerly Soviet occupied countries. They're usually really gun ho. They're just don't have a lot of military weight to bear. So I'm not putting you guys down. Anyone from like the Czech Republic or anything. You guys just don't have like the equivocal weight that France or Poland does. Then on top of that, Greece has sent over several air defense frigates, again for probably the same purpose. Then also we have flown in to Iraq and Jordan and the surrounding base airfields in the surrounding area. A total of now 36 A-10 Warthogs, 24 F-15s. There were already about 24 F-16s in Iraq. Now there's an additional 24, I believe, so that's 48. Plus, uh, there were 11 F-22s in Jordan briefly. They were being redeployed back to their home base, back up home in Alaska. However, that happened literally like a day before this happened. So they were immediately turned around and sent back to Jordan. And also, we sent 21 F-35s there as well. Then, on top of that, scattered throughout the Middle East, the U.S. has at least one division's worth in terms of combat personnel. So that's between in U.S. Division standards, that's between 12 and 18,000 plus. If they're following the usual assignment formula, that will be plus 140 Abrams tanks and 400 or more Bradleys and Strykers combined together. What else? Oh yeah. Also on the amphibious carrier for the Marine Amphibious Landing Group, there are also a dozen, or between a dozen and 24 Cobra attack helicopters. I couldn't get the exact numbers, but at least 12 and probably 8 Harriers. And then also on top of that, uh, France has 24 Rafales stationed in the UAE that they are going to be flying up over here to be ready. And Britain has put 11 Eurofighter Typhoons on Cyprus. And as of the moment, that is the like total force alignment as it stands. So it's if the situation blows out, it will get hammered. However, Israel, in terms of like internal like civil casualties and infrastructure, is also kind of going to get hammered because the further evacuations and thus reconcentrating of the population in smaller and smaller area. And at least if Hezbollah is like planning, since they're the ones that are going to have more rockets left over, Hamas is probably going to empty everything they have. Once they're confident that the Iron Dome is like down enough in munitions, they could do what Hamas did on day one, which is just like, you know, launch as many rockets as possible, like in the thousands or maybe in excess of 10,000, since they could expend that many and completely just overwhelm the system altogether. Granted, again, uh, they're unguided rockets, and they're not massively explosive. They obviously do cause damage. They do kill people, but they're not the same thing as like firing warheaded cruise missiles or dropping JDAMs or anything. But they can inflict a lot of damage if they put the effort into it. That does, though, also require the assumption that they have the coordination to. Uh, there is like the appearance that Hezbollah was kind of caught like by surprise by Hamas doing all this, but that could partially be true and also partially like partly an act. But apparently, at least according to intel sources, Hamas and Iran don't like trust Hezbollah as much, I guess, to keep their mouths shut. So that might be the reason why they didn't like tell them any dates or anything, but expected and or slash knew they would like jump into the fray once it started anyways, no matter what. And the Islamic Revolution is literally a like militia assembly of different groups. Uh, it does answer to Tehran kind of, but it wasn't like a kind of well organized thing that like would be entirely trustworthy in Tehran's view, like outside of being activated when it tells them to. And that's about the summation of it. Although, oh yeah, also, I mean, there could, well, there won't, but there could, if Israel suddenly gets dumb and uses something other than their F-35s to do it, there could be aerial engagements with Iran, which Israel would win, but uh, I doubt there will be any because Israel should hopefully be smart enough to use their F-35s. Uh, Israel has said if it blows out that they will like bomb and strike every Iranian military facility and fixture like within their range capability, which for the combat radius for the F-35 is uh, they could with standoff stuff they could fire or drop while still in Iraqi airspace. They could probably still hit anything within like 100 kilometers inside of Iran. But Israel has already actually struck inside of Iran with F-35s. It was partly to help Ukraine to cut down on the number of Shahed drones, because one of the Shahed drone factories was within strike range. So Israel bombed it last year or early this year. I can't remember which one, but it was partly for that reason and also partly at our urging and their desire as well, both of us, to test the F-35 stealth capabilities against the S-300 and S-400 air defense systems, since that's what Iran has. And a lot of China stuff is stuff that they bought from Russia as well, like the S-300 and S-400. So we wanted kind of to have a way to test the F-35 against things that we think most likely it's going to be going against in the near enough future. And so, uh, they probably would have done something eventually, but we also kind of prodded them into doing that last year, both again to help Ukraine by cutting back on Shahed drone production and also to test the F-35 stealth capabilities. And it worked perfectly. There was literally, if Iran did see it, like there ended up being nothing they could do anyways, because the thing with stealth is sometimes you can see it. However, even if you have like a even if your radar is decent, which Russian radars aren't, and it can see it, you can't really actually do anything still, because it's not like a solid enough and like consistent enough signature for the computer attached to the system to be able to register it and recognize it as something real other than dense noise, is at least what I refer to it as, or what the computer will insist to you that the object is. It will insist that it's just dense noise, or that it can't confirm that it's a real legitimate target. So even if the S-300 or 400 radars did see it, they still couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't actually like lock on or fire anything, which was the case with like the F-117 when we tested it way back in '91 in Iraq. Like it could be seen kind of by ground radars, but they couldn't lock on or anything. So that's why Baghdad, you can see it in like that old footage, was relying on actual physical like anti-air fire, like firing rounds up in the air, because they knew that it was there, but they couldn't actually track it or lock onto it. And the one case where a lock was actually achieved on an F-117, which is like old stealth technology. The design was actually made in the early '70s, was during the Serbia stuff. And that was at low altitude. And that was because the colonel who did that, he gets credit for this, the Serbian colonel. He was actually really, really smart. Like he knew it was effectively impossible as is. But the idea he came up with, which he wasn't supposed to do, like he technically didn't have permission to take command of like three different radar batteries, but he did it anyways. Uh, he got three different like extra batteries and lined them up like along this valley and pointed them all from different directions at where he was relatively sure the F-117 was. And it was enough to get like a clear signal, but still wouldn't let the system lock. The only thing that did let it lock for like 2 seconds was when the bomb bay doors opened, because that broke the stealth profile. So if it had just been passing in that particular moment, it still, even with that setup he did, still wouldn't have worked. But that was also like a bit of fortune on his part that uh, it happened to be like opening the bay doors at that moment. But that was actually a really smart idea on his part. However, that's not like something you can really rely on, because for one, that was like a stupid pathing that we were doing, like sending it down a valley low altitude when it can just drop stuff from high altitude. So, like for one, you won't see F-35s or B-2s doing that, and also not everybody has like uh, you know handful of numbers of count of battery radars to like move around at their pleasure and try to set up like elaborate valley spider webs with. But anyways, that was a long rambly thing. So Israel, theoretically, according to them, if this blows out, they are going to strike targets within Iran. Theoretically, if they are remaining intelligent, they would be using the F-35 and thus wouldn't get detected anyways. If they don't for some reason and decide to like use their F-16s or whatever, then you will actually see aerial engagements with Iran, which the IDF will win, obviously, but because the Iranian Air Force consists primarily of F-14 Tomcats and F-4 Phantoms. Yes, the F4 Phantom, like from 1960. It and in case you weren't aware, they can't really maintain those, not because their maintenance sucks. They're actually much more competent than Russian technicians are. But the parts for those planes don't really exist anymore. No one's manufacturing those. So even though Iran has become adept at getting around sanctions and getting stuff they're not supposed to have smuggled in, it doesn't matter for like F4 or F14 spare parts. They can't get them because they're not being made anymore. And also, most of what was made has kind of now been spent. So on paper, they have 300 combat jets. In reality, they have about 100 because they've had to resort to maintenance cannibalism, it's called, to cannibalizing the other 200 to keep the first 100 in working order. So their air force is kind of their weakest element. Iran has also made threats. I don't think I bookmarked that one, but they have said supposedly that if the U.S. Like retaliates against their proxies, that they will close the Strait of Hormuz. That is an empty threat because no, they won't, because they know they would actually face retaliation from that. Two, that is if you've been watching news for like a long time, for like years or decades, uh, them threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz is like Russia threatening to use nukes on everybody. They threaten that like on a weekly basis over the slightest grievance. So that's not really something that you can ever actually take seriously. And even if they actually meant it, they have no real means to close it. I'm not sure why like so many military YouTubers like constantly hype that up. Like they have the legitimate ability to stand off against several of the world's most powerful naval forces, all of which like maintain some presence in and outside of the Persian Gulf, just in case Iran decides to pull that. But some YouTubers seem to think that they would prevail at doing that. They wouldn't. But anyways, all right, I think that's like the grand total summation of everything as it stands up to this moment. It is changing by the moments. So I will, change updates and stuff also by the moment. Okay. Ugh. Check chat, responsible streamer. Jorgen, Norwegian or Sweden? Which one? Oh crap. I just realized I don't know Norway's actual name. I know I know I know Egypt's Mizraim, Israel is Israel, Turkey, Greece is Hellas, Italy is Italia, Spain's España, Portugal is just Portugal, uh, Tunisia I believe is just Tunis. Uh, they like the country was like kind of just named after the city. Algeria is actually Al Jazeera, and France is just France. Germany is Deutschland. The Netherlands is Nederland. Poland is Polska. Ukraine is Ukraina. Russia is Russia. Belarus is just Belarus. Austria is Österreich. Uh, the UK is the UK. Sweden, I've never heard like a different name. I've just heard it like pronounced more like Sweden. I don't know what Norway's actual name is. And oh yeah, then of course my favorite, or at least my favorite language, Hungary's actual name is Magyarország. Uh, and the language, although people would usually say Magyar, I think the technical term is Magyarul, just like English is Angolul. Okay, is the does the G make a G sound or a J sound like Norge or Norge? let's see, blah blah blah. The DDD blah blah cells blah blah ECMs blah blah blah. Okay, I'm not in. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, India is Bharat. Uh, I ironically I don't think I've ever heard. And I do actually watch like a lot of foreign films. The most recent one was a Pakistani cartoon, uh, Donkey Raja. I do actually watch like a lot of foreign films, preferably in language. Uh, and Donkey Raja, like from Pakistan. That one I did see the English dub first, and whoa, did they destroy it! Like they like actually rearranged scenes and changed the story itself and script and everything. So it was not even the same movie. Because I guess it's supposed to be like a kids movie, and uh, the actual Pakistani version, I guess when it came to like the UK and the US for English dubbing, it was deemed too serious for kids. So they like radically changed the plot and made it like in terms of themes, they tried to make it way more cartoony than it originally was. It was actually kind of dark and political because it was meant to be like a very unsubtle political commentary slash not very subtle jab at the whole off and on like semi-military dictatorship Pakistan keeps going through. But even in like Hindi stuff, I've actually ironically never heard them use Bharat. I don't know if they just don't do that in like films or something for some reason, but they do it in like regular conversation. I know China is Zhongguo, although everybody butchers that one for some reason, and people also keep spreading the wrong one. Like everyone keeps like spreading around Guangzhou for some reason, which is a horrible mispronunciation of oh no, that's Guizhou. Guangzhou is a horrible mispronunciation of a city near Hong Kong. But everyone for some reason keeps pushing that around as China's name. China's actual name is Zhongguo. And Japan is Nihon. Although for that one they really only refer to it as that like in Japan, like in conversation in Japan amongst each other. I don't think there's any others, at least that I know off the top of my head, that are like different. But anyways, oh yeah, real quick, before we move on to the Ukraine stuff, and before I check chat again to be responsible and not go on another 20-minute like deviation. So Serbia has finally kind of taken a hint that the military partner that they idolized so much for the last like 25 years is uh, just kind of sucks at everything. And their weapon systems suck. Their manufacturing capability sucks. They can't deliver what they promised. Iran is still waiting on those fighter jets. India is still waiting on those fighter jets. China is actually still waiting on a lot of stuff. Uh, they're it turns out not really the best partner to rely on. So Serbia has finally gotten that through its head. And did I bookmark this one? I think it was a ways down. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so Serbia, this is a Chinese espionage ripoff of the C-17, if you were unable to tell. Granted, they were only able to really get the airframe. They couldn't get like much else. Like they didn't get the avionics or anything, or the engines. so they threw some of their own on, and they changed the nose to make it more pointy, so that it doesn't look as espionage-y. But it's an espionage copy of the C-17. So Serbia has, as explained in the article, been ordering. They've canceled their Russian stuff and have actually, because they still hate the West, they've turned over to now wanting to order Chinese stuff because maybe the Chinese stuff ends up being trash. We'll find out. We'll find out over Taiwan and over the Strait of Taiwan soon enough. But for the moment, they know for sure that Russian stuff is trash, and that Russia can't really manufacture it at a fast enough rate anymore. So they've kind of turned away from that since they know that's a dead end road, and have started ordering from China instead. Although I would advise them that the Chinese stuff probably sucks, and if they really want to stay with their route of hating the West, uh, and but buying weapon systems from somebody, uh, the best option would probably be India. Although the stuff Turkey manufactures is momentarily better, India is probably going to surpass them like soon. But Serbia might consider Turkey too Western, even though Turkey is kind of leaving the West to go down their semi-genocidal Ottoman Empire restoration thing. But if they consider Turkey too Western, then I would advise Serbia to like order Indian stuff rather than Chinese stuff, because they're probably going to end up finding the same issue with Chinese stuff in terms of both quality and also the whole military industrial complex in China, along with a lot of other stuff in China, is going to buckle and implode in the aftermath of the upcoming Taiwan failure. But, you can't convince everyone of everything. So I can only advise people so much. Oh, speaking of that, uh, like I've said, you guys are probably familiar with by this point, uh, this year was still a very low chance of China actually going for it. I ranked it as like maybe 20% chance. Next year is the first year where I put the chance over 50%, because China is in a bind. You see, they're not ready. They are really not ready. However, they can't wait until they're ready. Like originally, I said a while back, their plan was probably to wait until about 2027, because by then is when, based on our satellite surveillance of their construction of various amphibious landers and strategic airlifters and other things like that, 2027 would be about when they would have the optimal amount and kind of still have enough on duty personnel before that birth collapse like actually then translates into adults in the 2030s. So 2027 was probably going to be the year originally. However, we're kind of forcing their hand, and that's kind of the point behind our strategy, is to force their hand early, so that they 100% fail instead of just like a 95% chance that they fail. As our original plan before Putin invaded Ukraine, we were going to start giving Taiwan NASAM systems and Patriot batteries and everything in, I think, like 2024. So next year now. I keep forgetting it's 2023. Then we were going to give them uh, the latest, like, updated modern version of the F-16 in 2028, I think. We were going to give them like Abrams tanks and HIMARS launchers and stuff in 2026. Now we've really sped that up. So Taiwanese citizens have already posted a few things spotting multiple multiple Abrams tanks already at different bases in Taiwan. They've already seen actually several dozen NASAMS and Patriot systems, and Taiwan really loves the mobile anti-air system, the Avenger. So they already have 500 of those around the island, and they want several hundred more. So we're giving them a bunch of those. And we are also, since we're getting rid of like the older Cobra attack helicopters, we're going to be giving them a bunch of those really soon. And we moved up the F-16 deliveries to, I think, 2025 instead of 2028. Although we probably will start giving them sooner secretly, since that's, the pattern. And next year, we're supposed to start handing them off HIMARS systems. So we are offloading everything we can as quickly as we can to basically kind of force China into the position of you're going to have to either suck and have no chance of succeeding, uh, or go early, double suck, and have equally no chance of succeeding, but maybe believe that you have like a 1% chance of succeeding. So next year is the first year where I would say there's actually like more than a 50% chance it might be the year. I still think it will probably be 2025. 2025 is probably the last they can wait till, but next year would probably still be too soon because they just don't have enough strategic airlifters yet to like air do like airlifting of supplies into rapidly into Taiwan if they successfully establish footholds. And also they have completed several more like massive amphibious assault ships. It's still not enough. It's not going to be enough. So they are still going with the converting civilian ferries into amphibious assault vessels thing. Uh, we've seen them on satellites multiple times over the last 2 years, preemptively like welding and bolting down anti-air systems onto like the upper decks of civilian ferries, and then covering it with a tarp to try to hide it from the satellites that already saw it. But they get an A for effort, I guess. So they are preparing that, and yeah, so I mean, it's doomed from the start because this isn't Normandy. This isn't a short crossing. This is like over 100 miles. I think, at least I think, or it might be 100 kilometers. Either way, it's a 6 hour crossing in fall, which is why I say it has to happen in fall, whatever year they do it, because in fall, the waters in the strait are the calmest, or in autumn, whichever one you prefer for the season. And so it would only be a 6 hour journey across the strait. Whereas in winter or summer, it would be about 8, maybe 7.5. And in spring, when the waters are really rough, it's just you're not doing it. Even the 6 hour crossing is still a case of you're not doing it because that's 6 hours of you just getting munitions rained on you and just having ships full of like hundreds or thousands of dudes and hundreds of vehicles sinking before they ever make it to Taiwan. And also remember on D-Day when we did that crossing, that there were no cruise missiles, there were no precision munitions yet. The only things firing like on the ships were regular artillery, just firing in general arcs. There were no anti-ship missiles. There were no HIMARS systems. It was just land artillery, and not even the Luftwaffe, because they had mostly been destroyed by that point. So this whole thing is just doomed. But is China, Zhongguo, still going to go for it? Of course they are, because Xi Jinping's a psychopath, and because they know the whole situation demographically and economically is imploding inside. And if you're familiar with like Chinese politics, one of the primary reasons the people like put up with as much of the stuff that the CCP does as they do is because of the massive economic rise they've gained from it over the last several decades. Now that that's stalled and is kind of about to die out, they're already starting to lose their legitimacy, and they're if they were to wait around and watch the outcome of it actually crumbling away, then that would be like the actual death of the CCP. So the only thing they think they have left is uh, religiosity of nationalism, fervor and uh, joy at the like reclamation of imperial territory, as was Putin's thing with Ukraine. So they are gonna go for it, and it's gonna be abysmal, and a lot of people are gonna die, and they're still going to implode internally anyways. The only difference is that there's going to be way more dead people than there would be in the non-invading Taiwan scenario. So that's the only thing that actually like comes about from these. You don't succeed at the empire reclamation stuff. You don't save your country from demographic or economic deterioration. You just make it happen a lot worse, and also like add a giant pile of dead people on top of it, as opposed to like the dead people you would also have because of like, you know, people not being able to afford a lot of basic stuff. But uh, so that's coming one way or another. I would say, like I said, 2025 is probably the most likely year now. Originally 2027, now it's 2025. I've gone off on like another 20-minute thing again, like I said I wasn't going to do. Okay. Uh, First one. Oh crap! I don't remember what the first one I tried was. Was it a uh uh which one was the first one? Uh, Norge or Norge? Okay. Now I know what the first one and second one I did this time were. Okay, now clarify it again. Sorry. Okay. Ukraine and the situation in Ukraine. Oh man, Russia just loves just like piling its people in dead bodies or in piles of dead bodies. So, like I said in the write up, the visual video and evidence and stuff you want, if you want to see, it is out there on various different X accounts and Telegram accounts. Uh, Noel, Yakub, and Special Kherson Cats do like the a lot of the stuff from inside Ukraine. I don't. Uh, Yay, Norge. Okay, I'm gonna assume that the first one then. All right. So they uh, hold on. I lost my thought. Oh yeah. This has been going on for a while, and the bodies are piling. So near Donetsk is I forget where. Okay, let's zoom in so I can actually find it. Where is it? It's Avdiivka. It is north of Donetsk. Okay, so Russia has been like insanely desperately trying to take Avdiivka. Uh, oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I will not actually go through those posts and show you those myself on stream because they literally, they're from the area, showing like the failed Russian assaults and stuff and the artillery annihilation of such. And several of them, like, get close up and literally show you dozens of dead bodies, many of which are like splattered into different limbs. I'm not showing that on stream. Okay, I'm not going to be responsible for like doing that to you, what I've already done to myself. That's like I've already like destroyed my own soul, basically. So Russia has been desperately trying to take Avdiivka. They have been throwing like multiple assaults at the place per day, consisting of dozens of vehicles and hundreds of dudes. And the same thing happens to each one. They get clobbered with artillery, the vehicles blow up. Uh, you end up with hundreds of dead dudes scattered all over a field, and you know, there's nothing is going to come from this other than a bunch of dead guys. But they keep trying again and again and again. And I said in that write up I did that they're starting to show the fact that something I've suspected for a while, uh, and that is that their numbers that they give for like how many, say, tanks or infantry fighting vehicles they have, those are probably fake. Like those numbers are probably not real because again they claim all the time. Where's the map I'm looking for? They claim all the time, and have always claimed, to have like we have the same number of everything as the U.S. We have even more, some, in some regards, and our stuff's better and more awesome. However, uh, their their budget doesn't match. Like they upped their budget this year, because they're sinking everything they can into it. But like their budget has usually been around $60 billion for their military, versus ours, which is between 700 and 800. You can you can say that stuff may they may save costs because they pay their soldiers way less, but that's still can't really account you for all that much because material, actual things, computer systems, targeting systems, weapons, those you can't they don't have like lower life costs. They don't have rents that they're paying that are lower than US rents. They are just things that have material costs. You can't just say, oh well, they totally do have like as many uh as many tanks and APCs and AFEs as the US, but theirs are so awesome that they're better while also only costing like $500. That's not how it works. If something only costs $500, you should stay away from it. Uh, so they are, they're starting to reveal that their numbers are probably fake. Like they claimed to have about 5,600 infantry fighting vehicles and armored fighting vehicles, stuff like BMPs and stuff, and the armed versions of the BTR. However, it's starting to look like that's definitely not the case, because at their Avdiivka assaults around here, they have been seen over the last 3 days of it or 4 days of it, resorting to using uh, amphibious, like river crossing uh, APCs, things that are meant to ferry soldiers across a river and basically pull up on the shore and offload the soldiers. They're not meant for actually like doing combat on land and being part of like armored charges because they're slow and they're not really all that armored. And A lot of their stuff is dedicated to like keeping water out, not keeping bullets and artillery shells out. So they've been seen resorting to using those in their assaults, even though those are literally guaranteed to not go anywhere. And also, how far down is it? They also, on some of the assaults, have even been conducting the assaults on uh, just trucks, like regular military supply trucks. They just put everybody in the back and conduct the charges like towards the front in trucks. So, kind of starting to get the vibes that don't really actually have everything they claim they have. Now, you can give them, I'll let you give them like some benefit of the doubt that like, maybe some of their commanders are like not too stupid and don't want to let Putin literally expend every asset their military has in this whole like fruitless nonsense. But you can also only carry that excuse so far. So and plus the Russian military only had one smart general, and that was Surovkin, and they fired him because he wasn't like listening to Putin anymore. He was more than likely, we don't know for sure, but he was based on how he was conducting everything. He was more than likely actually like trying to hammer in the reality that they can't actually succeed at this. And Putin did not like that. So Sorokin's been fired. Congratulations, you played yourself. So go ahead, play the DJ Khaled clip or GIF or whatever. So they're back to being run by, as the infamous Prigozhin meme set them up. Shoigu, Gerasimov. So this is what I think their probable goal is that they won't succeed at. So this is Luhansk Oblast. This is Donetsk Oblast. Before starting the war, they claimed that these two autonomous republics, the LPR and the DPR, were like wanted to join Russia and needed to be protected. And that was like before they started the war, back when they were still saying they weren't going to start the war. Those were the like actual reasons they gave for the war that they were also claiming in the same breath they weren't about to start. Then, after they did start the war, Putin gave that rambling grandpa speech about restoring the Russian Empire. He revealed his hand pretty fast. But this is what I think they might be trying. So, they kind of know the reasons for which I'll explain in a minute. They know that effectively the game is up. Uh, they, they might have listened to Surovkin, I guess, and then also fired him. Uh, you know, because bearer of bad news, you might still then believe the bad news afterwards. I think they know the game is up, and they want to try this. They want to like desperately scramble to like grab the rest of Donetsk Oblast, and then if they managed that in their minds, they could then like actually like pull out of the rest and stop the actual war. And that would give them like an excuse at home to their domestic audience. That would give them an excuse. They could pull the usual the Chechnya lie of look, we totally won. By saying that, well, this was why we were there, to begin with, and they could leave Kherson and Zaporizhia uh, on their own without the line collapse that is inevitably coming once they run out of SPGs to keep trying to plug the block with. So that would give them an excuse to actually end everything. However, that wouldn't last very long because Ukraine's not stopping. So Ukraine would then just move right up to like the borders of Crimea and start lobbing some of those attackums we're handing them onto the peninsula. But they'd get a few weeks of an illusion, and the the hopeful idea, uh, is that they would get this done uh, at least before Putin's reelection campaign or the election that's being held in April. Um, or probably in Putin's more delusional mind, he wants it to be done before he announces his campaign for reelection, which he will be announcing, I think, next week. So, are they going to pull that off by next week? No, they're not. Are they going to pull that off at all? No, they're not. Um, they've kind of proven their inadequacy, and Putin is addicted to, I think it's called the gambler's fallacy, where you just keep doubling down no matter what. So, no matter how inadequate Russia proves itself, they just keep going further. And on like the number stuff, uh, there has been like other hints at it. So along the front lines, for one, they can't really do close air support stuff in Kherson and Zaporizhia, anyways, because the airfields there were already destroyed by regular HIMARS strikes, and the ones on Crimea have been hit by Storm Shadow and some of Ukraine's own missiles like Neptune. The only airfields they were really able to operate close air support for their forces from were deep in Donetsk and Luhansk. And even then, it was still starting to wind down. Like they do still appear. Su-25s, their supposed answer to the A-10 Warthog, even though it's not anywhere near it. Uh, they do still appear, but they have, compared to like how frequently they would be used like by the hour earlier in the war, they have effectively vanished. So, despite the fact that only about 40 of them have been shot down, out of Russia claims to have 180. So, that's, it's making me call the numbers into question. Also, the Su-34s have really disappeared, despite, again, only, I think, like 35 being shot down out of supposedly 100. So, maybe they do have 100 of those and 180 Su-25s, but or yeah, Su-25s. But I am starting to doubt they have that many operational. Also, they have now lost their Ka-52 helicopter fleets, or sorry, they've lost half of it, as they claimed they had 130. Turns out they only had about 110, and 65 have now been destroyed. Uh, Nearly like 10 were recently destroyed with Ukraine's first use of ATACMS, because ATACMS is the big missile for HIMARS that goes longer, and when it explodes in the air and splits into like several dozen of the smaller warheads that go on the smaller HIMARS missiles and shotguns those like all across an airfield, for example, and so it just blows up everything. And so Ukraine used the ATACMS we gave them in the first batch to hit the airfield Russia was using in Donetsk and the one they were using in Luhansk, and just demolished a whole bunch of helicopters at each one. So that brings the total like Ka-52 losses up to like 65 out of 110. So they're running thin in that regard. And now they're wasting their supply trucks. They already have infinite logistic issues, but they're now wasting their supply trucks in like cavalry charges in Avdiivka. So like this has gone beyond like my brain limits for like stupidity tolerance. Uh, oh yeah, and they also have since this was like one of their primary areas that they've been holding defensively since 2014. They covered it with anti-vehicle mines, and in their mad charges out towards Avdiivka, they've been constantly running over and triggering their own anti-vehicle mines. So, portion of their casualties have been self-inflicted. Now, the reason they know the game is up is basically because around here, uh, where the where Ukraine has made it through the primary wheel thing that was holding the advance back, was that Russia had constructed a 2 mile deep minefield, and in very early September, Ukraine finally made it through that minefield and punctured past the like primary defensive line just past the minefield that Russia had set up. So uh, after doing that, Russia kind of went into a frenzied panic real fast and started just hauling as many artillery pieces, as many SPGs, big howitzers as they could up to where the breach was, and just have been hammering it with artillery, like trying to make sure that Ukraine stays stalled just past the line where they breached. And that's been working so far, as long as they've maintained their ability to keep bringing in a dozen new SPGs per day to replace the dozen or so that they're losing per day. Because in the 18 months of the war before this, before the line breach, Russia had lost about 400 SPGs. In the now, like 1.5 months since the line breach, they've lost an additional 200 in just that short amount of time because they've just been so hurriedly racing them in, not really trying to like position or conceal them, but just trying to maintain a rate of fire. So they're not like, that hard to find. They're being hit really easily, and they don't really care about hiding them. They're just trying to maintain a like unassailable fire rate. which is telling. It's telling that that's what their aim is right here, because it kind of gives away the fact that they are aware that if they didn't, then this is it. This breach is a legitimate breach, and stuff would flood in from the north, and they'd end up in a line collapse. So they are trying to hold that as long as they can keep bringing more SPGs in. They have tried regular like towed artillery, but that's less mobile, takes longer to set up, and is prone to misfiring because of how poorly they've maintained it. And also, they're losing more and more from their pool of available SPGs to use, because Ukraine has now conducted 3 successful landings across the Dnipro at 3 different points, all of which are like really muddy because of the aftermath of everything. And so Russia has, in response, usually Russia brought several SPGs in, like 10 to each point, and has been hammering them to try to kill off the forces that landed, or at least force them to cross back across the river. However, it hasn't really been working because of the mud. The artillery, like shells, the rounds are landing like in the mud. They're going down into the mud before actually encountering enough resistance to detonate. And the mud is like soaking up so much of the power of the explosion that it's not like going anywhere or doing anything. So they are inflicting casualties. They are like killing some of the landed troops eventually, but it's not really what they would want. And also, Ukraine isn't like trying to actually do anything with them anyways. The point of these landings, these 3, and potentially a 4th one if they try a 4th one, is precisely that, to get like 10 or 12 artillery pieces brought in to focus on that point and just hammer those dudes to try to keep additional artillery resources away from the breach up there. So they're up to a bit over 600 SPGs lost out of supposedly, again, their numbers are now getting kind of called into question. Supposedly they have 1,600 in total, or had at the start of the war. They were not manufacturing any new ones until just now. After 2 years, they finally managed to manufacture uh, somewhere between 4 and 12. We don't know for sure, but they said that they've manufactured between 4 and 12 that they will deliver to their armed forces sometime soon, by an unspecified date. So yeah, the pool is being attrited much faster than it's ever going to be replenished. And also, we are already aware that, zoom out, they are not, they don't have an infinite supply of artillery shells from the Soviet days like we thought they did. They probably do in number, but most of them probably like the compounds inside the explosive stuff probably like broke down and decayed and won't work. And they cannot manufacture enough as fast as they want. So now they're importing a bunch from North Korea, who has like a huge stockpile of stuff the Soviet Union gave them generations ago. And even their rocket artillery, their MLRS systems, even like the old Soviet ones, like the M21 Grad, that we thought theoretically they should have infinite rockets for, turns out no, they don't, because in some of their own videos that their troops published on their telegrams, they have been seen loading the M21s with M21 ammunition, but it was all Iranian. It was renamed, like restamped stuff that the Soviet Union gave to Iran generations ago. So they're now relying on that, on Iran's old stocks for their rocket artillery. So they're really wearing this whole thing thin, and they're aware of that, or at least I'm assuming they're aware of that. At least Surovkin was aware of that. So that's why I think they're trying for this and trying so desperately in Avdiivka. Because even if they even if they realize or don't realize that they aren't going to really be able to grab all of Donetsk, let alone even really any more of Donetsk, all that much. They're still probably continuing this because they still probably have decided that they'll just grab as much as they can until they think like they are completely out, and then they'll still stop with whatever they have of Donetsk and Luhansk, and then still turn to their domestic audience and say, "Look, victory, we won," and try to pass that off for as long as they can. Uh, so that is how that's all lining up. And as for like, since the question may arise, why can't they like manufacture stuff as much as they want or as fast as they want? What happened to their military industrial complex? Well, the Soviet Union had a large military industrial complex. Russia, not so much anymore. As you see in the whole economic collapse that happened after the Soviet Union, a lot of the dudes that ran like the industries that manufactured their military stuff kind of just gutted the factories and like sold everything to like just rob the system and then move abroad somewhere with the money. So, they kind of left not all that much behind. And even in the present, some of them still do that. Like the reason they're not manufacturing any new infantry or armored fighting vehicles is because the guy in charge of like who owned the one industry responsible for supposedly manufacturing them kept taking orders from Moscow throughout this whole war to manufacture more and said, don't worry, it'll get done sometime. And turns out the dude, not even a portion of the money, like embezzlement, he literally just took all of the money that the Ministry of Defense paid out to his company. He just took all of it and banked it himself. So, the whole thing is kind of just a bit too broken inside to really function. And that's how all that is lining up at the moment. Also, Russia's been pulling like some hilarious propaganda nonsense. They tried to claim that like Ukraine struck some random like residential area with ATACMS by they took a water heater, like a residential water heater. They painted it up like ATACMS, and literally, like you can see that they are different, like jagged cuts of metal and stuff. They like super glued different like cut up mock-ups of like rocket fins on different parts of it. They didn't even space them evenly, and they like dug a perfectly square hole in the ground and put the thing face down and like filmed a video and were like, look, they used ATACMS to try to strike this neighborhood. And I forgot to tell you guys about this one, but last month they tried a hilarious thing in Moldova. They did this propaganda vid where they tried to like start up a thing about the U.S. invading Moldova, and so they posted a video with two dudes um in supposedly U.S. Kits, U.S. gear, and the dudes, one of them was wearing literally Eastern European camo, and another was wearing the old Air Force BDU from the 90s. Now, credits to them for having some of that around because, that's my favorite camo uniform ever. I loved seeing everybody around Otis Air Force Base in that. We need to bring that back. But those weren't US things, and they were not wearing US Dragon Scale body armor. They were wearing like generic $1,400 on Amazon like bullet vests and stuff. And could they buy a few, like airsoft fake M16s or M4s? No, they just straight up shot the video holding AK-47s. And the dudes weren't even wearing like the same type of helmet. One was wearing a World War II helmet. Another was wearing a literal Russian infantry helmet, a modern day one. Not that it's any better. And the supposed Moldovan dude like walks up to the two guys and like asks them like and ask them where are you from? What are you doing here in Moldovan? And one of the guys, not even trying to hide his Russian accent, just answers Murica. And I'm like, you can't be serious. You can't be serious with this. You can't actually like you can't actually be serious. And like this was like retweeted by like their various like officials and embassies, and I think even their MOD as official evidence of the U.S. invading Moldova. So they're like I've said, I've lamented how sucky Russia is at like propaganda and lying versus how effective the Soviet Union was at it. So like that's apparently Russia's attempt at mocking up evidence of the U.S. invading Moldova is dressing up two dudes in outdated 90s stuff or literally Eastern European stuff that's blatantly not American, having them walk around with literal AK-47s, not even buying a fake airsoft version of an M16, and having them in a Russian accent, not trying to even hide their voice, just shout Murica at a cameraman. So it, the thing is, someone has to be like approving this. Like someone has to like be receiving these ideas at an approval desk, like at their intel agency, and like stamping it, saying, "Yeah, this is smart. This is a great idea. This will work." And the fact that someone is approving that is kind of like it's kind of telling that it's you, you ain't what you used to be, brain power wise. Now, I actually kind of should be thankful for that because that's part of what's making them really militarily ineffective. But loss of brain power just in general as a concept is really, really, really sad, especially when it's like this much. Okay, I think there were a few other things. Oh yeah, so you guys know how Russia has been implementing production cuts. So they were up to about 10.8 million barrels per day before invading Ukraine. In the initial aftermath, as Europe turned away from them really fast, they had to drop down to 10 or 10.1 because of customer absence. And I said in spring of last year that by spring of this year or so, about 1 year after all the oil majors left Russia, they would begin a production downturn because they're incapable of actually maintaining it themselves. The oil majors that came in from outside like had to rescue Russian oil production in the 90s after the USSR collapse. So when it came to spring of this year, you guys might even remember that stream or those videos. Turned out I was right. Though Russia let us know that unadmittedly by saying they were going to start implementing production cuts as acts of revenge against the West, even though the ones buying their oil now are India and China, their supposed friends. So the only ones they're cutting off supply to are their own friends, which is, you know, not lining up with what they're saying they're doing, but okay. Like I said, they suck at lying now. So they cut by 500,000 barrels a day. Then just a couple months ago, they cut by another 300,000, now down to 9.2 million. Now they have said that they're contemplating cutting a bit further next month. So this is actually faster than I thought their internal production decline would be going. My assumption was that it would be similar to the rate at which it occurred post USSR, which was about 500,000 barrels per day the first year before it turned into a full 1 million barrel per day drop and got down to about uh, 6 million barrels per day once all the Arctic and permafrost stuff and tight oil and everything was out of the picture. And it was just temperate climate conventional stuff left because that stuff is really basic. And even in the absence of so many of their engineers who immediately left after the Iron Curtain fell, because they were some of the ones who could afford to leave, and some of the ones who would be welcomed by the West most eagerly immediately. Even without so many of them, they could maintain the conventional stuff. So that's why the decline stopped at like 6. And then the Western oil majors entered and started restoring everything by the late 90s. And then also started expanding into like more tight oil and the Bosanoff shale, and then going into like Arctic waters and more Far East and permafrost stuff. And Russia was, almost up to 11 million barrels a day. But so, the post Soviet collapse was 500,000 the first year, then 1 million barrels per day per year after that, until hitting the floor of 6 million. So I was expecting the decline this time would be similar starting in spring of this year. I expected, they would lose behind the scenes about 500,000 barrels per day of capacity this year. Then between spring of next year and spring of 2025, they would lose the whole million on top of that, which, 10.8 million barrels per day minus 1.5 million goes down to 9.3. So the 9.2 they were already down to, I would have thought would theoretically be enough to conceal their decline, until spring of 2025, assuming that the fields they shut down when they first started shutting stuff down post invasion because of customer absence. That's assuming the fields they shut down first were the ones that they knew they would lose first. As they've shown, like poor intellect on stuff, that might not be the case. So, uh, whether it's because of that or just because it is worse in terms of reservoir quality and depletion than I thought, it looks like their semi not really concealed internal production downturn might be going faster than I actually thought it was. So, like I said, the 1.5 million that they've already cut down by should have been enough to conceal everything until spring of 2025. So they could have theoretically waited until then to cut more without needing to. But apparently they need to cut more, which kind of implies it's actually worse. It's actually worse inside than I initially expected. So that's a bit of a blind side to me. I really didn't think it would go that fast, but apparently it is. So we'll see how that like goes and further develops on from there. I should check chat again. There is nothing in chat. Okay. Uh, I believe U.S. win against China. Yeah. Uh, not it would not be the same as anything else. U.S. versus China. Me giving them the benefit of the doubt that their stuff actually is high quality. The newer stuff that they've been making themselves since like 2010, not the old stuff they inherited from Russia and the Soviet Union, because we know that stuff's crap. So when you write that stuff off because you have to, the number of like assets they have drops kind of drastically, and they are actually aware of this. Uh, because that is another thing we've noticed Intel wise is they've kind of stopped training in like maneuvers and stuff with the older inherited Russian and Soviet stuff because they've seen its performance now demonstrated in Ukraine and in the Black Sea. So uh, you know stuff's getting sunk in the Black Sea by a country with no navy. So China's lost their confidence in the Russian stuff just like Serbia has and everybody has. So we have noticed that they've kind of, not entirely, but in large part, they've stopped training with that stuff. So their numbers of total things are no longer like what we initially like would list them as. Although in an all-out fight, they would probably bring it back in anyways, just to throw everything they have. Uh, But in terms of like, would we win versus China? Yeah, it would be probably the most costly fight we could possibly have. The only other like the only fight we could have that would be like more more damaging to us with like a higher loss ratio in every regard would be a fight against the rest of NATO, against collective Europe. But in terms of fights that are actually possible, slash could slash probably will happen, depending on if we directly intervene on Taiwan's behalf, then that will be the most bloody one. Uh, our own uh, our own estimates on the Navy's part, at least specifically, uh, based on and keep in mind, our estimates have always overplayed enemy capability. Like uh, Iraq, for example, like both times we expected to lose 20,000 guys and expected to have like hundreds of AFVs and tanks lost until we found out the Abrams is effectively invincible. And we actually honestly expected, I think, like 200 combat jets to get shot down. Now, that did not end up happening. First Gulf War, we ended up losing something like only 90 guys. Second one, where we actually invaded, which we would not be doing in China's case. The one where we actually invaded Iraq, where the Iraqi army like actually fought back kind of harder because we were invading their home, we still only lost about 200 guys that time. And the 7 Abrams we lost were literally losing them to A-10 Warthog friendly fire. So, and I think like we ended up with 2 dozen shoot downs in each one on our part, on the US's part. There were several other shoot downs in the first Gulf War uh, of aircraft from like Saudi Arabia and stuff. So partly out of caution, we overestimate our enemy's capabilities and giving China like a huge benefit of the doubt. We in like different sims, we ran it up that the I think it's we lose 1.5 carriers, which is basically saying like 50% of the time we lose one, 50% of the time we lose two. We lose 1.5 carriers, uh, a few subs. The highest naval losses are among destroyers. We don't. The U.S. doesn't really have frigates. We don't believe in frigates. Basically, frigates are too weak and too small. We don't go that weak. Uh, the usual average trade was like uh, giving them like leniency. We traded 15 to 45 for a ship to ship stuff, destroyer on destroyer. So we we sunk 45 per 15 losses, and I think the highest assumed exchange benefit was in the air, where we lost 300. We lost 300 combat jets, Air Force, Navy combined, and shot down like 700, I think. And then the simulation stopped because one, they usually have a time limit. Two, they kind of assumed that uh, some of the CCP military echelon might end up like turning on Xi Jinping if the military losses like exceed a certain amount, because some of them uh, might, and we would kind of hope, might want to not actually expend China's entire military force on something they kind of know is going to fail. In terms of like the ground combat, we wouldn't really be getting involved with that. Taiwan can handle that by itself. Plus, also even in like a best case scenario for China, like like 100,000 at least of those guys are going to die just crossing the strait. Their ships are going to get sunk before they cross. Because again, like I said, that's like 100 miles. This isn't Normandy. This isn't a jump. This is 6 hours under guided munitions fire, uh, and and also at Normandy, there was nothing left really that the Germans had, anyways, except for like two of the beaches still did have artillery to shoot out. But even then, back then it was just artillery. This is attempting like a massive amphibious invasion in the modern day, which is something that even we ourselves have concluded uh, we probably couldn't even really do against an opponent who has modern military equipment. Against someone who doesn't really, yeah, probably. It still just wouldn't go that well. But you know, trying to invade, whether or not you have modern equipment or not, trying to conduct like a massive 100-mile across the water amphibious invasion against an opponent who also has modern military weapon systems, it's not something you do and succeed at. So for one, but yeah, the whole question of like U.S. versus China, would the U.S. win? Yeah, I mean, it would not be like the best scenario. It wouldn't be in Iraq. Obviously, it would be like I said, it would be the most costly conflict. Uh, Aside from if we were to somehow fight collective Europe slash the the uh, the other members of NATO aside from ourselves, but that's not like a realistic thing. So, in terms of stuff that actually could slash might happen, this would be the most costly one. But yeah, no, China can't actually pull it off. But so rounding up, lose two carriers, uh, assuming China expends its entire air force, uh, lose we would lose like 500 combat jets out of our total 3,000 at the 300 versus 700 exchange ratio, and we would probably end up what would that ratio yield? We would lose like 25 destroyers uh, in exchange for basically wiping out their effective navy, meaning they're ships that are like legitimately meant to actually engage other ships, which would be like kind of a blow for us. We have about uh on our actually hold on, I forgot. I have the numbers. I have the numbers because you guys ask me this stuff so frequently. You guys ask me this stuff so frequently. How strong is X country? How much of X equipment does X country have? What kind of equipment does X country have? I forgot. That's another thing I started doing for you guys is since you ask me so frequently, I decided I'd like write it all down here in my notepad so I have it like on demand. I can pull it up at a moment's notice instead of like trying to like look it up or anything. I just forgot that I have it. So what do we have here? What's our count? So we would lose 25 to 30 destroyers in the best case scenario for China, and that is out of about 70 we have. So that would be like a decent blow. Of course, that is also under the run up assumption that there are no cruisers uh, at standoff, also like lobbing some anti-ship missiles over. Uh, and we would, in the best case scenario for China, lose two carriers out of 11. Uh, Not as good for China scenario. We lose one, but we are relatively confident we would end up losing one, and roughly probably like an entire strike group. And total like in total, like I said, we would probably lose about 500 combat jets in the good for China scenario in exchange for effectively wiping out their air force, their effective air force at least. because remember, uh, their Air Force is I think 1,600 combat jets. However, like 300 of those are uh, a J7s, I think, is their designation, but it's the MiG-21. It's the ancient MiG-21. So it's not really at least it is a MiG, right? Yeah, this ancient thing. So like 300 out of those 1,600 are ancient MiG-21s, so you can't really count those. And also another 150 are their like attempt to make something like the Harrier that's not really it's just not really meant for air combat anymore. This is true of ours, of the actual Harrier as well. Uh, Harriers and Chinese knockoff Harriers are not meant for air-to-air combat anymore. Those days are gone. This isn't the Falklands. Their role now is as another ground attack, ground support aircraft. So you have to disregard the knockoff Harriers as well. And yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, because like I said, we wouldn't really even in the scenario where we like do intervene in favor of Taiwan when this all goes down in probably 2025. We wouldn't be getting like on the actual ground because for one, Taiwan will be able to handle that itself. The rate at which Chinese forces will actually like make it to land is not going to be that high, and also it would be we wouldn't like actually want to pull the risk of trying to like get landed forces in Taiwan. It wouldn't really be worth the risk. Even then, if they do, uh, like we would be able to help more on the ground in Taiwan by just sending in B2s or now B-21s. Either one's invisible to radar anyway, so it doesn't matter. B-21's even better because it flies at its role is to fly at like 60 or 70,000 feet. So even if someone had magic radar that could see it, it's above the range of like air to air SAM interception. So we would honestly help more on the ground, help Taiwan more on the ground by like if Russia succeeded at like fully taking any specific beach or harbor, I like just sending B2s or B-21s and just bombing that area, just like J damming it to oblivion. But yeah, that's like how the loss ratio would play out. Uh, More than likely, it would be a bit not as in favor of China as those numbers play, because, like I said, we in our guesstimations we overplay our upcoming opponents and like over calculate what we assume to lose, partially like out of caution and also to like prepare the like public-ish announcement type stuff, prepare like Congress and the president like you know for when they're going to be made aware of like potentially larger losses and stuff than ends up actually happening. But yeah, that would slash will be the like the worst one we get into uh since World War II. Uh and then who else is there that's actually going to be coming up eventually? I mean, we are eventually going to fight Turkey. That's kind of inevitable now, as you know, they're already doing the northern Syria stuff. Now they've switched it over to semi-genocide slash forcible ethnic flight, forcing everyone from the north to flee south, where the Assad regime is probably just going to genocide them. And they're eventually going to do the stuff with Iran, uh, unless on like a 1% chance Turkey decides to like take advantage of Israel striking Iran if Israel does strike Iran when all of this blows out. Uh, I really don't think they would, but like maybe a 1% chance they decide to just dive in on that here and now instead of waiting for what's actually going to happen, which is, since Aliyev literally declared that all of Armenia belongs to Azerbaijan and is already like gradually staging forces on the southern Armenian border. Azerbaijan's going to invade Armenia itself, which Iran said they will respond against Azerbaijan when they do that. Then Turkey will respond against Iran in Azerbaijan's favor, not really to help Azerbaijan, but just because they want to knock Iran out and be like the major regional power, so that there's very little stopping them from their whole, or really Erdogan's whole Ottoman Empire restoration delusion. And then they will eventually, following that aim, go into northern Iraq, uh, eventually on whatever grounds they make up. And on my initial timeline, I don't expect that to happen until like mid to later 2030s or maybe not until the 2040s. But a lot of stuff has been happening earlier and faster than I thought it would. So you never know. When they do that, that will draw us against them because they will be trying to, like, seize control of a major portion of the global oil supply. So we're not having that. That's when they're going to get curb stomped and the Ottoman Empire thing will shatter. And hopefully, actually, in aftermath of a eventually shattered Turkey, and honestly, ever ineffectual governments in Iraq, plus semi-autonomous Kurdistan already, anyways, and crumbling internally crumbled Iran in the aftermath of losing to Turkey already. Hopefully, finally, Kurdistan will come into existence out of this. That would be like one of my big hopes, but can't guarantee everything. So yeah, that one's coming uh, just further down the line. We are going to crush Venezuela soon. I thought it wouldn't happen until the later 2020s. However, Venezuela has already begun uh, positioning more and more troops and military assets on their border with Guyana. This dotted line here is because Venezuela claims that the western two-thirds of Guyana actually belongs to Venezuela. And they're pushing a motion. They're mimicking a democratic process in their parliament right now. They are putting forth a motion that their parliament is going to vote on of should we just invade it anyways? And they're going to vote yes on that and set a timeline for when they're going to just go for it. The result of that is going to be that that's going to draw us against them, and it's Venezuela. It's not even Iraq. It's Venezuela. So their military budget is like not even 1 billion. It's like 700 million. They don't maintain their combat jets because they can't. They don't maintain their naval vessels because they can't, and they don't actually have any. They don't maintain their tanks or armored vehicles because they can't afford it, and they don't actually have any. What they do have is military trucks and some guys in camo with AK-47s. Because what Caracas uses its military for is not uh, defense. It uses it to black bag its dissidents inside of its own population. So that's kind of going to be a curb stomp. It's not going to be an invasion, uh, partially because that would be stupid, and partially because everything's like on the coast, anyways. It's going to be a bunch of cruise missiles and a bunch of airstrikes, and that's just going to be the end of it. I mean, if there are U.S. troops on land, that will much more likely be in Guyana to, quickly deal with any Venezuelan incursion like deep into Guyana. Granted, most of that up there is all jungle, so that's not going to be easy on their part, anyways. But we're not going to let that happen. For one, because Guyana is an emerging major oil producer, and for two, it's in our hemisphere. You know, that's kind of been a stated thing for like nearly 200 years now. Is that if we are the power in the Western Hemisphere, if you pull something, you you know off abroad, you guys over there, you want coups, you want to invade each other, fine. You want stuff here, you're not doing it. The hammer's going to come down. Whether like you politically agree with the hammer coming down or not is irrelevant. That's just a thing that's going to happen. But that's like I said, that's not really going to be a fight. But it is apparently coming sooner than I thought it was because everybody is just going for it. Whatever their aims are, they're just going for it. And actually, just today, hold on, I believe I took a Bandicam screenshot of the article. Did I? Is this it? Yes. So we have just suddenly started up uh, doing exercises with Brazil, with the apparent intention to do more very soon. It's almost like we are planning to be working with them in similar terrain in the near future. So, like, wonder what that could be in planning for. Plus, also, like, any temporary, like, occupation in, like, Caracas or anything, we would probably leave to, like, Brazil or some neighboring regional country, because, that would not look as bad as if we were there. So that's coming. And other than that, I have no idea. Stuff can happen, but that's all the stuff that like I do know is going to happen. Libya always might reignite their civil war for like a fourth time. Uh, oh yeah, things aren't going well for the triple opposition. We're going to take down the West. Trio of coup leaders. So the coup leader in Burkina Faso, to the surprise of no one, uh, he himself almost just got couped. One of his generals, he was a general of the previous guy that he couped. Well, one of his generals just tried to coup him. He didn't succeed. There was like a big firefight in the presidential palace. Funny how they always have presidential palaces. But there was a firefight and everything, and they defeated the coup attempters, but also a lot of like his loyal guards died. So he doesn't have that many anymore. And the precedent's already there because Burkina Faso has had like a million coups. So this whole thing, this whole fantasy romance isn't really going to last all that long. All right, I think that is actually the end of everything we have on here. Uh, yeah, it looks like it. But it's not the actual end, but it is. I've been going longer than I was supposed to, and I have obligations I promised, offline, so I have to actually go get to those. So I am probably going to shut this down now, unless no super chats, unless anybody has any questions. Can't guarantee I can answer anything that's a super chat. I by rule have to at least try to answer, but that's still not a guarantee I'll have the answer. Constellation class FFGs 20 40 DDGs experience straight SIP FFGs. Okay, I do not know all of the technical terms. I'm assuming that's this. Guided missile frigates. Okay, future 2026 or in construction. Okay, is this Uh, oh, still has a decent set. Bunch of anti-air. I'm assuming you got CIWS somewhere as well. I don't know why we're still bothering with like actual gun turrets. No one's fighting with those anymore. Although I guess we do shoot pirates with them sometimes. Uh, where are you gonna have? You can have 32 cruise missile cells uh with just 32 missiles on board, or is it going to be like the others where they have like one additional missile for like for the cell, or at least like some additional missiles? Because I don't I'm of the full like original thing I said, like the old stance of I don't believe in frigates. Not in like frigates in general, but like I don't believe in downforcing. Like you referred to it as overkill, but nah, you want overkill. Always go for overkill. Because overkill, when you're at least in several generations like we had up until now of people being mostly intelligent, having overkill and everyone knowing you have overkill kind of keeps everybody from acting up. Uh, then eventually you'll start hitting the psychopathy hiking trail that we're on now. But then in that case, it's good because you have overkill, which means you can deal with the psychopathy hiking trail. So no, there's no overkill. It's proper kill is the term. Proper kill, my friend. Always stick with proper kill. And as for you Europeans, actually, can you get yourselves back together? Like, yeah, I mean, France hasn't like, France hasn't deleted themselves yet. They probably will eventually. The UK, you guys have been deleting yourselves. Germany, you're a mess. You're never gonna leave the I was a bad boy crying corner. Japan was like off in a corner sulking too, but like they actually answered our call when we asked them, to come back like a decade ago or so. But no, Germany is just going to sit in the cry boy corner. Poland, Polska is actually reliable. Polska is going to end up becoming like the second most powerful country in Europe. What did I go to YouTube for? Since everyone else is shrinking themselves, so it's going to end up being them just behind France eventually. Japan's fine. South Korea's fine for the moment. Turkey in the old days, I would want to like stay strong and get stronger, but now that they're doing the whole Ottoman Empire thing, no. India, I actually am. I do regard India like getting strong as a good thing. Unfortunately, it's not really going to last because of the whole inevitable implosion when they deplete their groundwater and suffer an agricultural output collapse in the 2040s. That's going to cause like chaos and major mass death. But while it lasts, it's kind of a good thing. Uh, some of the stuff that Modi's doing internally inside India, not so great. But India being like a strong military force externally, good thing. All right, let me shut this down. I also never sit properly, so I'm starting to kill my back. All right, blah blah blah. Have to go. Yeah, no, don't worry, that's fine. Just blah blah. What? Okay, but why would we downgrade to anti-piracy and convoy escort when we're literally entering into the psychopathy hiking trail now. We've entered into I mean, people want to call it World War III. It's not really. It could become World War III, but we're going into a period where we're actually returning to like engagement against actual military enemies. But anyways, yeah, that's it for this one.